Hey guys, today I'm going to show you guys how to draw an anime girl face. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to draw a circle. That's going to be the base of the sketch of our head. And then, it doesn't have to be perfect circle, just a rough circle. And then a line that goes through the center of it, vertical line, that's going to be the center of the face. And of course, this is the sketch, so you normally don't want to draw it, that clearly because you want to erase it at the end. But for this video, for tutorial purpose, I'm going to draw it very clearly so that you guys can see it. Okay, so let's just draw the chin. So normally when you start drawing this chin, you should normally go for 4 lines like this, and then you smooth out the corners, and that's going to be more or less how most people draw the chin. And of course that actually is not true. It really depends on what kind of style you're going for, but that's a pretty good general rule of thumb on how to draw a chin. And if through practice you will kind of know how the shape should look like, and also how much angle it should be. It really depends on the appearance of your character. So around this is pretty okay. Actually, I'm gonna make it a little bit like that. Okay, now let's draw a vertical line, a horizontal line. That's gonna be, at the center of the head again. And that's going to be the line for the eyes and the ears. So let's just draw in the ears. It's gonna be the top of the ear is gonna hit this line, okay, around there. It depends on how your character looks like, because we don't all have the same position for our ears. And where it ends, it should be around this line, I think, but it's not that important because we have large ears and small ears. It really depends on which character you're going for. I feel like I'm repeating that line now. Okay, and then this is the neck. So the one thing that I have problem with drawing the neck is how thick it should be. This is something that once again depends on not only the appearance of the character but also the style you're going for. For example, in Dragon Ball you see really a thick neck. So for this video I'm gonna have it around this thick. And remember, it should be pretty proportional to the width of your shoulder. So if you have a thin neck like this is pretty thin in anime, you should have a fairly narrow shoulders. Okay, now let's go for the eyes. This is normally where I start drawing the eyes, but before I do that I just need to make the shape a little bit more symmetrical. So one thing to remember when you're drawing head, especially when it's looking directly at you, because when it's looking directly at you, we're so sensitive to human heads, because we've seen that so many times, that even a slight variance in its symmetry will be very noticeable. So you don't want it to be asymmetrical, you want it to be symmetrical as possible. So always remember to see that the angle of the lines are the same on either side. Of course, we're not completely symmetrical, but you will never be able to get it perfectly symmetrical. So if you try as hard as you can, it will look good. Let's go for the eyes. So more for the eyes, I like to draw it like this. So I think I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, like that. And then I like to go for. Okay, so first the position is going to be around this line, and then where it should be from left to right, it should be a little bit closer to the side of the head. That's the style I'm going for. And as for the curve that you're going to draw for the upper eyelid, I like to draw it so that it curves a little bit lower on this side for girls, and then for guys I like to have this side a little bit lower. That's because I think if you have this side a little bit lower, it's going to make your character a little bit cuter. So that's going to be how I generally have the curve. And then remember, this is very important, is that you keep or at least use the thickness to your advantage here. It should be thin here, and then the line should go thicker and thicker to the side, like this, and at the end it goes a little bit thin again, like that. It can go a little bit thin there too, it's a little bit too thick. Okay, see that here is thin and then thick and then thin. I hope you guys can see this. It's a little bit, it's not a very significant difference, especially considering it's just a stroke, but it's really significant if you look at the final product, because eyes is the thing that we look at the most at a human's face. Okay, so for the other eye, the thing that you want to remember is to keep it as symmetrical as possible. So the distance should be the same, the distance from the side should also be the same. This is not just for the eyes, but especially important for the eyes, because it is the thing that we look at the most. It is the part that we are most sensitive towards. So you have to understand which part of the face we're more sensitive towards, because if we are more sensitive to that part, it will have to be more perfect for us for the drawing to look good. Okay, let us draw the iris. I normally like to have really large iris for my characters. The thing that I remember now, once again, is to keep it as symmetrical as possible. So when drawing the iris, if your character is looking directly at you, the front view, then the upper part of the iris is going to be covered more than the lower part of the iris. You see that you can see almost the whole circular arc on the lower part of this iris, but not the upper part. So that's what happens when they look directly at you. Now let's just add a highlight. You can just choose basically any position for this highlight, but I chose it here. And then let's just add a okay. So there are many ways to draw how the light and the thing goes on in the eyes, but I like to draw it like this, or this is one of the ways that I draw irises, or irises. I don't know, but that's one of the ways I draw irises, I think, and that's to have this line and then these two bubbles, and then a final line on top. Okay, so what I do now is that I make these crossed or diagonal lines for this part, okay, not on the bubble and not on the lower part, and I make the other side to make it darker, another diagonal lines, and then also the pupil I have in the middle. Okay, so that's how I like to draw the eyes. It's not perfect, that's just one of the ways. Let's just add the eyebrows. Once again, for the eyebrows, actually for eyebrows it's not that important to keep it symmetrical, is it not? You should try to keep it as symmetrical as possible. It's not as important as the other parts. I don't know why, but it just appears to be that our eyebrows might be asymmetrical at times. I don't know. But since if you look at this now, this is a pretty cute eye, I would say. So I will have to make the face a little bit more like in accordance with the style. And how I do that is I'm gonna make it a little bit more rounded, because the eyes is pretty rounded. So I'm just gonna change it a little bit, not too much, the chin doesn't change too much the shape of it, like that. And also you shouldn't draw it this hard, because now we're going to draw the hair and then it's going to cover parts of this, so don't draw it this hard as I do. I'm just doing this for tutorial purpose. Okay, so for the nose, it should be around here, around the line I mean around where this circle and this vertical line crosses, a little bit above it sometimes, a little bit below it, depends on the style. And then for mouth, I'm just going to draw a smiling mouth, nothing special. I think I did it with my original, in one of my earlier videos too. Okay, pretty good. So for the nose, I just chose a dot. That's pretty standard actually. That's also easy, so that's why I do it. And for the mouth, I like to draw it in this way. Actually, a lot of manga artists do that. Is that the middle is it's just a space, and then you just have these two dash lines towards the middle. It gets thinner if this gets to the middle, so that's why you have to draw it from this side and then this side, and then also make sure it connects so that it looks like one line, even though it doesn't have anything in the middle. It's just a space, and that's because we tend to have more shadows on this side. And of course you can connect the line, but that's just how I think it looks a little bit better. I'm actually going to make the size even thicker, like that. I think that makes it look even better. Okay, I hope you guys can see that the line is getting thicker. Okay, so now let's get to the hair. Actually, no, yeah, let's get to the hair. Okay, so you see that this line is drawn very hard, so we probably can't erase it now. But normally you want to draw it very light because this part is going to be covered by the hair most of the time, for at least for anime girls, because that's how most of the anime girls have, or at least the hairstyles of them are. So I like personally, I like to draw the hair of that's covering the one or the two sides of your face first. So I'm just going to do one line like this. Okay, so before you draw the hair, you might want to have image of how you want the hair to look like. Actually, I don't have an image right now, so I'm just kind of randomly drawing lines. But I'm just going for a thing that I do almost a very normal thing to do for my characters, and that is to have this thing here. And for how long this will be depends on the hairstyle, of course. But the thing is, when you draw this part, you want to keep this, or actually every part of the hair, you want to keep your lines very straight, very smooth, not like vibrating your hand. And how do you do that? Because your hand vibrates all the time, you have to draw the strokes very quickly, as I'm doing right now, you see. And I try to move it several times before I actually draw it, because to make sure that I keep my hand moving in the correctly gesture, such that the stroke is like what I want it to be. Okay, so it looks good on this side, and let's do the same thing for the other side. Make sure that this part is not symmetrical, not at all. It should be as asymmetrical as possible while keeping it, while they look like the same thing. Okay, how to do that? You just have to add a lot of randomness. Okay, so for example, I can make the wind blow a little bit on this side. Actually, you see that this line is on this, and then this line points towards the right side. And yeah, that's pretty good too. Okay, and one thing that you should keep in mind as a beginner is that you should draw these lines not connected, like not down there and then up again down there. You just not draw it in that process. You should draw it first like a line like this, and then a line like this, and then just connect them on the same side. Also, if you noticed, the way it curves, I see a lot of beginners that tend to curve the same amount all the way down, and that's, I think, is wrong, or at least makes it a little bit artificial, I guess. And to make it look more natural, you have to curve more at the end or at the beginning, depending on your hairstyle. So the curve should have, how much it curves should be different from not the same all the way down. Okay, so for what's in front of it, I'm going to just make cut like almost straight all the way through. One thing you might have noticed already is that I try to keep all my lines towards the same point, because at least for many kind of hairstyle, they tend to have a point that's kind of like a root for all the hair strands. And for example, here I try to I try to make them look random, right? But they should all generally point towards point to somewhere like that. And that's just how human hair works. You tend to, the hairs tend to grow from one point. At least you tend to brush it such that the hair goes from one point. It makes it look more beautiful, I think. But of course, it doesn't have to be like one point. Doesn't have to be there. Even it can be several points. It can even it really depends on the hairstyle. But just remember that you can draw it like this. Also remember the other things that I've told you. Okay, so you see that I try to draw, it should be like straight, right? That's kind of like how this hairstyle should go. But I try to make it such that it's random. So it goes up sometimes and down sometimes. And one thing that's, I think, very important for beginners at least, is that when it stops, like this line, it stops here and then it stops here. And I feel like a lot of beginners tend to draw it so that these lines are very on the same level, same height. But I think it makes it look much more beautiful if you have these lines of varying heights, like this, and then maybe one even almost nothing, like this. Okay, so at this point that I call root, I draw some lines down to kind of tell people that they grow from that point. Doesn't necessarily look good right now. Okay, that's pretty good, I think. Okay, so now we got the hair that's in front of the forehead, but actually it looks strange now. The reason is because we have to have more volume to the hair, and this is just like the front part. There's also the part of the on the back, so it's gonna look like this actually. And how much volume you add to the head, it depends on your style and your hairstyle, so the appearance of the character. And if your character is younger, generally it should have a larger or more volume to the hair. If you want to go for cuter, also larger hair. That's just how anime world works. And so I've actually not decided what I want to have on the like behind. I think I'll just have long, plain, boring hairstyle. I hope it's not too boring. And then to make it more random, I'm just gonna add a line like this. That's gonna make it look a little bit better, I think. And I'm just going to add clothing to her. Shouldn't be naked. But what kind of clothing should I add? What about I really don't know what kind of clothing. What about just a tank top? It's summer right now, so kind of matches the mood. And there I just made a mistake of having the shoulders a little bit too wide. I knew it. I guessed it actually. Should have told you guys, because now I feel like I'm just kind of saying things after it happens. But it should be a little bit narrower, like this. And the tank top doesn't look that alright. Why? Why? That's pretty good, I think. Okay, now for you see that, you know, after we've done all of this is pretty much done, but there's one thing that we need to do. Actually, we need to add some lines here in order to make it look more natural. You know, the more lines you add to the hair, the more realistic it looks. So, or also the shorter these chunks, I mean, not the shorter, the thinner they are, the more realistic your style becomes. But one thing I want to say is that there is a lot of sketch lines right now, and you want to erase them. At least normally, if you want to have a finished work, you should erase all of them. Actually, you see a lot of manga artists on the internet or in real life that they tend to draw using a different pencil, or even just using a normal pencil for sketch lines, and then use a pen or some kind of way to do the inking part, or at least the part that I call the inking part, which is the part when you draw the final lines that should be in the final product, because a lot of lines right now aren't in the final product, and I use the same pencil, so I can't, or at least I can risk erasing the lines that should be or should stay in the final product. And you see that most of the air is covered by the hair, so you didn't need to draw the lines inside of it. That's why I didn't do that in the beginning. Actually, you can still see part of it, and that's why I'm gonna add this one curved line here and this one curved line here. That's gonna be the only thing that we're gonna see that's inside the hair, no, the ear. Okay, so actually I'm going to do one thing, and that's going to draw these lines much harder. I'm not sure whether I will do a time lapse here, but because you know I there's really nothing much to say right now, except for that you know, when you're drawing this part, make sure that you don't stick, or at least don't force yourself to stick to your sketch, even though you will try to follow your sketch, but you can make changes, just remember that. And I think I don't have more to say about this part really, because it's just that simple. Okay, so finally I'm done redrawing all the lines that should be in the final product, and erasing all the sketch lines. And you think you're basically done, but you still got one thing to do. Actually, I want to mention that I did do one change to this drawing, and that is to add these small lines. I think you can see, I hope you guys can see this. These small lines in the iris, that's kind of like the fingerprint of the eye, the iris print. And it makes it look more realistic. I think it was a little bit too plain just now. But there's just one last thing left. Actually, if you want to color it, then it's actually two things left. But if we just draw in black and white, then the only thing that we need to do now is to add shadows. So let's get started. First off, I normally just do this. This is the first thing that I do when I draw the shadows, and that is to add this shadow. And there are of course many ways to do shadows. I'm using a mechanical pen, so it makes sense for me to draw these diagonal lines, but of course you could do a gradient using a pencil and then just make it not look like lines, but a complete color. Okay, I actually forgot to draw these the ears. Now for the ears, I'm just gonna make this almost completely dark. It was a little bit too hard. Well, make sure you don't draw these lines as hard as the lines that you draw when you're doing the inking part. It shouldn't be as that visible or that hard, the strokes. Okay, so for this part, I'm going to copy the what you've drawn, and then just add them, kind of like, how do you say that? Okay, so for example, for this line, I'm just gonna like do this for a smaller one up there, and then shadow all the way down there. Okay, and also you notice that I draw the outline first. That kind of helped me, helps me drawing the shadows such that it doesn't go out of, or at least it goes to where I want it to be. And the same thing goes for here. The same thing, just much shorter up here, and then shadow on the upper part. Let's just do the same thing to all these. And then I'm just going to add a shadow such that it looks like this one is being cast on it. And also on this side, completely shadow. Okay, so now I'm doing it just a little bit fast, but normally you might want to have these lines very beautiful. Actually, it looks quite beautiful. So, but this one is a little bit rushed. Okay, and then for the nose, I'm just gonna add a kind of like a square like this, because the shadow is gonna be below the nose, so it's gonna look like that. And I think I should have zoomed it. I'm sorry, should have zoomed it. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit again. Okay, for the mouth, actually going to add I'm not going to add much, but I think this one looks a little bit not like one line but two lines. So just going to make it look like one line. It's hard, especially because I've drawn it this hard. Shouldn't have done that, one mistake. But I'm going to add a shadow for lower lip. That's good. And what else for this part? Shadow here. Okay, so lower part I don't care because it's not the topic of this video. But for the hair, it's going to be a little bit hard. So the thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to draw the outline, but not for the shadows this time, but for the highlight. It's going to have highlight here. Okay, like all the way around here should have highlight. That's the parts that are going to be white or light. Okay, and then this one. Okay, so that's enough. I'm not gonna care about what's behind, or should I? I don't know. Actually, I'm just gonna add that too. And how it should look like is that I almost forgot saying this, but for larger chunks, you know, the highlight should have also be fatter, larger. And then for smaller ones, like this one, it should be smaller, thinner. That's just how it works. And I'm going to actually just give a color. I don't know whether it's blue or red. You know, it's just black and white, so you don't see that. And all the way on the top part of the hair, and I make sure I stop like right outside the boundaries of the highlights that I've drawn. And also make sure that you draw these diagonal lines using the same pressure, same direction, so that it connects well with the lines that you've drawn. And if it doesn't connect well, it will not look that good. So you want it to look like one color, and because you see lines, so these lines have to correspond to each other. Okay, finally. Okay, just wait. Just the last part. Okay, so you don't really have to care that much about that, because you know we still have a lot of sketch lines. So this one is a little bit sketchy style, actually, the art style now. So we don't have to care that much about the shadows. But another thing that you might want to do to add a little bit more dynamic to your picture is to have more highlight on this side or on the lower part. Again, this should go like a straight line through the, or a little bit curved depending on the 3D shape of the head. So great, let us just draw the whole way and then jump over the highlight. I'm gonna be a little bit quick now because I don't want you guys to just watch me do this. Actually, I should be doing a time lapse, but it shouldn't take that much time either. So I'm just gonna be quick and don't do a time lapse. I'm sorry, don't hate me. You can skip if you want. Okay, so for the last part, just make sure it has the same color. That's kind of like the first thing you want to do, and then draw more lines in order to make it look like it's darker there because it's behind. It's being covered from sunlight, so it has to be darker, like this and like this. Maybe even darker by drawing more lines. So when we're adding shadow using this way, like these diagonal lines, you can either draw them tighter so that there are more lines, or using another direction to add more shadow to make it darker. Okay. And actually, I think we're done now. So I'm just going to add a shade for our dress, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's not the focus of this video. I'm just going to zoom out and then put on my pen. Finally, we're done. I hope you guys made a beautiful product from this tutorial. Hope you guys learned something new. I know I've already made a video. This is kind of like a remake, but it doesn't hurt to have two videos so that you guys don't have to watch the same tutorial again and again. It helps to learn something new. And I will be uploading a new video pretty soon. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.